easy to see why the SEC is comfortable with the 4-team playoff. Not that they're not going to or block an expansion to 8 or 12 because they would benefit from that as well. I think the Big Ten and the SEC would benefit, and the Big Ten has had a lot of teams. They've got that tier of teams that consistently drop below the 4 that make it, where you would think, if you look at recent history, the Big Ten would benefit greatly from an expansion to 8 or 12, especially. But the SEC, and so in the 8 years, I just counted it up. In the 8 years of a playoff, the SEC has entered 10 teams into the playoff. So they haven't missed the playoff, and twice they've had 2 teams in. So 10 for the SEC. The ACC and the Big Ten are next with 6. It's pretty decided. I know it's only 8 years and only 10 versus 6, but if you extrapolate that out and that trend continues, that's a pretty reasonable, decided gap between the SEC always getting a spot and sometimes now 2 out of 8 years getting 2 spots, and the SEC, the Big Ten and the ACC missing some years. So they're at 6, the ACC and the Big Ten. Then the Big 12's at 4, of course, with Oklahoma, and then the Pac-12 with 2. So it's a pretty good spread for the SEC right now with the 14 playoff, and you can credit the SEC partially for that. In my thinking, you give them about half credit for winning their non-conference games and placing a team in position each year, and sometimes 2 teams, 2017 and this past season, in position to be selected because they've performed outside the conference. But I also think that there's, based on their previous dominance, preference given to the SEC. So I think some of that they've earned, and I think they've earned it in the past, and therefore that gives them the preferential treatment from year to year.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're spot on with that, Mark. And it's just, and I don't know what it would. I don't know what it would take. I don't know what it will take, I guess I should say, to change the mind of some of those teams. To your point, that's had some of that preferential treatment. It's interesting with when you look at when you look at people that are the consumers of college football. Do people enjoy seeing the same teams over and over compete, or would they like to see some different teams, get in there, get the opportunity to be able to do this? And I mean, from my perspective, I think that the opposition that I've continued to hear, I've always heard is, oh, the Final Four games aren't competitive as it is. Why would we want to bring more teams into it? And I think for me, the difference is on the other side of it, right? You may still have some of those non-competitive games in the Final Four, the +1 situation, but then you have much more competitive games early on, and specifically if you integrate some of these bowls into the situation where maybe there's not as much intrigue as there has in the past, then I think it's a win-win. I mean, the one concern I get some of these coaches and athletic directors, administrators don't want these kids playing 16, 17 games. I get that. That's a concern, and I completely understand. And I guess this is just me thinking optimistically that maybe the feeling is the delay is we need to restructure some of these schedules a little bit in such a way that we're not playing so many regular season games to allow them to play um 16, 17 games. But I mean, Mark, when you look at some of these kids that are going to go play at the next level, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're playing. There's 17 regular season games now, right? Then you have the playoffs that could go. You could potentially play another 3 or 4 games. So some of these, when you get a little bit older, when you're in the NFL, you're playing, could be potentially playing 20 games or more. So um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope we get to a point here by 2026 where there's a lot less opposition, and then we start gaining some traction on this.